You can have the absolute sharpest, most innovative playbook in the entire league sitting right there on your tablet. You can hire one of the brightest, most sought-after offensive minds in the game to call the shots, but all of that, millions of dollars in investment, months of off-season preparation, sky-high expectations, can literally be brought to a dead, terrifying halt by one single awkward step on a practice field. A championship window in the NFL is incredibly fragile. It can slam shut in the blink of an eye. And right now, the Los Angeles Chargers are finding out in real time that the line between a triumphant, dominant season and total derailment is razor thin. It all balances on a knife's edge. Welcome to this explainer for NFL Nexus. Today, we're pulling back the curtain and looking deep into the massive, seismic shifts currently shaking up the Chargers training camp. We're going to explore how a singular, heart-stopping moment of panic is forcing a complete and total roster reshuffle on the fly. And on the flip side, we'll look at how an influx of raw, undeniable speed is entirely rewriting the offensive hierarchy right before our eyes. We aren't just talking about a few depth chart tweaks here. We are talking about the kind of foundational, systemic changes that can ripple out and alter the entire trajectory of the AFC. Let's get into it. So look, the arrival of offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel has brought a massive tidal wave of hype to Los Angeles. And rightfully so, right? His track record absolutely demands respect. The way he designs plays is practically a masterclass in modern football. But his entire system, the incredibly intricate timing routes, the explosive deep shots designed to stretch a defense to its breaking point, that complex wide zone run blocking scheme, it all hinges entirely on one strict, non-negotiable factor. You have to keep quarterback Justin Herbert upright. You have to keep him comfortable and perfectly protected in the pocket. If Herbert is constantly running for his life, none of the genius play calling matters. The underlying anxiety surrounding this team right now, the tension you can literally feel in the building, isn't about the flashy playmakers catching the ball. It's about the very foundation of the offense that allows the ball to be thrown in the first place. Because if the offensive line crumbles, the entire playbook just goes right out the window. And right now, the spotlight is glaring intensely on the health of their superstar left tackle, Rashawn Slater. So the question we have to ask is, can this offense survive another hit to the line? That isn't just some hypothetical talk radio debate topic. It is the single most important variable for the Chargers' entire season.
Section 1. The Slater Injury Scare. Let's look at camp's biggest concern. To really understand the current landscape of this roster, we have to start with the anchor, the blindside protector, the man whose literal job description is to ensure Justin Herbert doesn't end up flat on his back. Let's look at exactly what went down on the practice field that sent a collective shiver down the spine of the entire Chargers organization. Picture this. It's August 4th in San Diego. The pads are on, the intensity is incredibly high during live, full-speed 11-on-11 drills. Guys are fighting for jobs, and suddenly, right in the middle of it all, Rashawn Slater exits the action. He's walking over to the medical tent with a trainer. Now, in that moment, time practically stands still for a franchise. You really have to remember the context here to understand the panic. Slater was already working his way back, ahead of schedule this summer, from a torn patellar tendon. For those who don't know, a patellar tendon injury is notoriously brutal. It anchors the kneecap. For a massive 300-plus pound lineman who relies entirely on explosive lateral quickness and his kick slide to block elite pass rushers, recovering from that is an incredibly steep uphill battle. The immediate fear on that sideline was a devastating setback. Slater didn't return to the live action that day. But as we try to separate the initial sideline panic from the confirmed reality, post-practice footage did show Slater doing some of his typical routine work. Following that incident, however, the team effectively put him in bubble wrap. They handed him strictly scheduled rest days over the weekend. His usage has been intentionally up and down since that moment, which is a massive clear sign of extreme meticulous caution from the coaching staff.
Naturally, head coach Jim Harbaugh had to step right up to the microphone to extinguish the fire. He categorized the whole situation as, quote, just a ramp-up. He heavily emphasized that Slater is right on schedule, strictly following the book written by the doctors and trainers. Now, Harbaugh wouldn't specify exactly what prompted that initial trip to the medical tent, but his tone throughout the presser was a highly calculated de-escalation. It's classic coach speak, right? It's a statement perfectly designed to reassure a very nervous fan base and keep a tense locker room focused. But the reality of the National Football League is that actions always speak louder than press conferences. You can say everything is fine, but how you manage the roster tells the true story. And the Chargers' subsequent immediate actions on the depth chart reveal exactly how fragile they view this left tackle situation to be.
The extreme caution we are seeing makes perfect sense when you realize that the ghost of last year is actively haunting this training camp. It's the 2025 ghost. The coaching staff remembers exactly and painfully how disastrous things got when both Slater and fellow starting tackle Joe Alt were lost to injuries. When your two premium edge blockers go down in this league, an offense absolutely collapses. It's not a gradual decline, it's a cliff. The pocket compresses instantly. Those wide running lanes vanish before the running back even gets the handoff. And most importantly, your franchise quarterback takes a brutal, relentless beating. It really doesn't matter if you have a brilliant offensive mind like Mike McDaniel calling the plays. Those complex, long-developing schemes simply cannot withstand that level of attrition on the offensive front. The play is blown up before the receivers even make their breaks. The stakes are just entirely too high to gamble right now. That is exactly why seeing Slater taken along at this painfully slow pace for the rest of camp shouldn't be a shock to anyone. This isn't just standard injury management, it's a mandatory survival tactic for this entire franchise.
Section 2, Offensive Line Roster Shuffle. Let's break down the domino effect.
In football, an empty spot on the depth chart, especially on the offensive line, creates an immediate, visceral reaction right down the line. Offensive line play is all about chemistry. It's 5 guys operating as one cohesive unit. So the extreme caution surrounding Rashawn Slater isn't just happening in a vacuum. It's disrupting the entire ecosystem. Watch how the dominoes fall here, triggering a massive butterfly effect that is altering the career trajectories of players who are fighting for their NFL lives. Step 1. Slater takes a mandatory rest day to protect that knee. Step 2. The Chargers are forced to pull Trey Pipkins, who is their primary swing backup tackle, and insert him at left tackle to fill the void. Now, context is key here. Pipkins was previously deep in a heavy, highly competitive rotation, fighting tooth and nail for the starting left guard job. But because of the Slater scare, the team realizes they desperately need Pipkins to focus exclusively on tackle depth. They can't risk him inside. Step 3. Suddenly, that left guard position is blown wide open. A massive high-stakes opportunity materializes on the interior of the line simply because the franchise left tackle needed a day off. It is crazy how fast things change in August. And look at the stark contrast that is created. It brilliantly and somewhat brutally illustrates the diverging fortunes of an NFL training camp. On one side, we are discovering the sudden rise of rookie Jake Slaughter. Originally tasked with switching from center to guard, he is actively seizing this newly opened door. Over the weekend, he was elevated to take first-team looks, snapping directly to Justin Herbert. That is the gold standard of progress for a young lineman. You are protecting the franchise. On the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have Trevor Penning. Once considered a prime locked-in contender for that very same guard spot, his stock is plummeting, and it's plummeting fast. Over the weekend, Penning was relegated to taking third-team reps in front of quarterback DJ Uiagalelei. Now let me tell you, the gap between snapping for the franchise savior and blocking for the third-string quarterback is an absolute chasm in the NFL. It's a completely different speed of the game. It's a striking development that highlights how critically important the upcoming preseason action will be for Penning's mere survival on this roster. If he doesn't perform against the backups, he might not be here come September.
Then there is the absolutely bizarre nature of training camp experimentation. Sometimes you see things that really make you pause and wonder what on earth the coaching staff is seeing behind closed doors. Poor Scott Matlock. Look, he was drafted in the 6th round back in 2023 as a defensive tackle, a grueling, dirt-under-the-fingernails interior defensive line enforcer. Under Jim Harbaugh, he was transitioned to play fullback, which is a tough enough transition on its own. Learning the blocking angles from the backfield is a completely different skill set. But over the weekend, coaches actually lined him up at offensive tackle. Yes, you heard that right. A defensive tackle turned fullback, taking reps on the edge of the offensive line. The physical and mental leap required for that transition is staggering. The footwork alone, going from firing off the ball as a defensive lineman to executing a vertical kick set against an edge rusher, is incredibly difficult. While it's early in camp, and yeah, experimentation happens, this specific move raises major eyebrows. Is it just tinkering to see what kind of athletes they have in the building? Or does it signal that the Chargers are far more desperate for tackle depth than they are publicly admitting? It is a fascinating, slightly concerning subplot to watch unfold.
Section 3. Playmakers climbing the chart. Let's see who is rewriting the depth charts.
Okay, let's take a breath, because it isn't all anxiety and offensive line reshuffling in Los Angeles. Out on the perimeter, the energy is completely electric. Justin Herbert and his skill position players are rapidly adapting to the complex timing of McDaniel's offense, and we are seeing some explosive weapons capitalize on their opportunities in a big way. Enter Keaton Mitchell. While severe injuries have tragically limited his availability early in his career, McDaniel didn't hesitate for a second to go out and acquire this incredibly speedy back. He was brought in for a very specific, undeniable reason: unadulterated explosiveness. In a wide zone blocking scheme, you need a back who can stretch the defense horizontally and then put his foot in the ground and get vertical in a flash. Over the weekend, Mitchell showcased exactly what that looks like.
He scored a beautiful touchdown on a perfectly timed deep pass down the field. He isn't just making flashy plays in individual, non-contact drills anymore. He's actively threatening to displace Kimani Vidal and steal that coveted second spot on the running back depth chart. In a McDaniel offense, speed like Mitchell's isn't just a luxury. It is a fundamental weapon that absolutely demands touches. Now, I want you to look at this single number on the screen, 4.26. I really want you to stop and think about how fast that actually is, especially in a league full of the biggest, fastest, most genetically gifted athletes on Earth. That isn't just football fast. That is elite, defense-terrifying, game-breaking speed. That is the 40-yard dash time of Brennan Thompson. And let me tell you, that kind of pure speed is completely altering the geometry of the Chargers' passing game right now. When you have a guy who can run a 4.26 on the outside, the safeties literally have to play deeper. It opens up the underneath routes. It changes how a defense calls their coverages.
Thompson is another playmaker handpicked by McDaniel, and he has been turning heads every single day of camp. We are talking about a player who got a massive, roaring reaction from the entire crowd over the weekend after securing an incredible, highly technical sideline toe-top catch. Coming into camp, the prevailing theory among analysts was that Thompson would face a nearly impossible uphill battle to actually see the field. The base offense relies heavily on precise, technical route runners, established, high-investment names like Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, and Trey Harris, guys the franchise spent significant draft capital on. But here's the thing about the NFL. You cannot ignore daily, consistent production, and a defensive coordinator simply cannot scheme against pure 4.26 speed. If you blink, he's past you. Thompson's daily performance is making his rise up the ranks completely undeniable. He's forcing the coaching staff to step back, swallow their pride on those early draft picks, rewrite their original depth chart plans, and find a way to get his speed on the field when it matters.
Section 4. Undrafted defensive standout. Na'Dame Tucker shines. Let's shift our focus to the defensive side of the ball for a moment, because there is a fascinating story developing there as well. Under defensive coordinator Chris O'Leary, this defense has been built around a theme of strict continuity and discipline. But within that established, rigid framework, a massive underdog success story is brewing, proving that sometimes the absolute best additions to a roster aren't the ones you draft in April. Meet Na'Dame Tucker. When camp began, there was a quiet, persistent hype surrounding this undrafted free agent. And as we are seeing now, through authentic, pad-popping discovery on the practice field, that hype was entirely warranted. Tucker brings an impressive resume of college production numbers to Los Angeles. But crucially, and this is the key to his success, he generated that massive college production while playing under O'Leary, who is now his pro coordinator. That built-in familiarity with the playbook, the exact terminology, and the specific expectations is huge. It's allowing Tucker to play incredibly fast, free, and completely without the typical rookie hesitation. He isn't thinking out there, he's just reacting. And because of that, his college production is directly translating to the professional practice field, even against elite veteran competition.
The really crucial point here is exactly how Tucker is capitalizing on his limited reps. When you are an undrafted rookie, you don't get many chances. Over the weekend, though, he was a constant, undeniable disruptive force. He logged a highly notable quarterback pressure, completely collapsing the pocket from the edge, and he didn't stop there. He followed it up later in the session by securing a hard-fought, legitimate sack. In the NFL, coaches constantly talk about stacking days. It's the grueling, exhausting process of putting together consecutive great practices to prove to the staff that your flashes of brilliance aren't just a one-off fluke, but a standard of consistency. You have to prove you belong every single day. Tucker isn't just stacking days, he is practically cementing his status in real time. Right now, this undrafted free agent is starting to look like an absolute lock to make the final 53-man roster. It is a stunning, inspiring testament to the power of scheme familiarity and having a relentless, nonstop motor. So as we pull back and look at the whole picture, the stakes in Los Angeles right now are incredibly high. The meticulous, nerve-wracking caution surrounding Rashawn Slater's health will continue to dictate the offensive line rotation, creating massive ripples across the entire depth chart. The blistering, game-breaking speed of Keaton Mitchell and Brennan Thompson is forcing a total reevaluation of the offensive weapons and exactly how Mike McDaniel might deploy them. And massive underdogs like Na'Dame Tucker are fighting tooth and nail, snap by snap, to secure their livelihoods on the defensive side of the ball. The upcoming preseason action isn't just a meaningless exhibition for this team. It is the ultimate proving ground. Every single snap, every pass pressure, every block is going to have massive real-world consequences for how this 53-man roster is constructed ahead of Week 1. Will that patched-up offensive line hold up against live fire? Will the speedsters secure their starting roles when the lights come on? The answers to these questions are going to shape the entire trajectory of the Chargers season.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive explainer on NFL Nexus. Look, if you want to stay ahead of the curve and understand the real, lasting consequences of every single NFL training camp battle, you need to hit that subscribe button right now. Don't miss out. Like this explainer and jump into the comments below. I really want to hear your unfiltered opinion on the Chargers' offensive line situation. Can they survive without a healthy Slater? And do you think Brennan Thompson's 4.26 speed is the real deal? Let's talk about it. And to truly support the channel and get exclusive access to more premium deep dives just like this one, become a member today. We are going to keep tracking these pivotal battles all the way to week 1. Stay focused, and we'll see you in the next explainer.